Lastly, pain often teaches us the value of resilience. When we experience hurt, we may feel like we're broken beyond repair, like the weight of our pain will never lift. But over time, we realize that we are stronger than we thought. The resilience that grows out of pain is not the absence of weakness or struggle, but the ability to continue moving forward in spite of it. We begin to understand that pain does not have to define us, it can refine us. It can refine us. Each painful experience we endure can make us more resilient, more capable of facing the challenges that lie ahead. The wisdom in pain is that it equips us with the inner strength to persevere, to rise again after falling, and to keep moving forward with a deeper sense of purpose. The wisdom in pain is not always immediately apparent. It often requires time, reflection, and a willingness to look beyond the hurt. But when we allow ourselves to embrace the lessons it brings, we uncover a well of wisdom that can transform us. Pain has the power to shape us into people who are more compassionate, more humble, more resilient, and more in tune with the deeper truths of life. It's not easy, and it's certainly not something we seek out, but when we find ourselves in the midst of it, we can trust that there is wisdom hidden within it, waiting for us to discover it, waiting to guide us into a greater understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Pain, when embraced with an open heart, becomes a tool for growth, transformation, and ultimately healing. Divine timing is one of those concepts that's difficult to grasp when we're in the middle of a difficult situation or waiting for something to unfold. It's not something we can control, nor is it something that aligns with our own sense of urgency or impatience. When we're facing hardship or waiting for things to change in our lives, it often feels as though time is working against us. We want answers now, or we want the pain to end immediately, but instead we find ourselves caught in a season of waiting. But this is where divine timing teaches us a powerful lesson. God's timing doesn't follow the same rules or rhythms as our own. We tend to measure time by calendars, deadlines, and the pace of our lives, but God sees the bigger picture, while we're focused on the now or the next. God sees the entire course of our lives, and He knows exactly when things should unfold in order to bring about the greatest good. What might seem like a delay, a detour, or even a missed opportunity is often part of a much larger, more intricate plan. In the moment, it's hard to see why things are happening the way they are. We may wonder why it's taking so long for things to get better, or why certain doors aren't opening when we think they should. But the reality is that God's timing is perfect, and sometimes the waiting is necessary for us to grow, to learn, or to be prepared for what's coming next. There's a natural tendency in human nature to want things done on our terms, in our time. We want answers to our prayers right away, and we want situations to resolve according to our own sense of order. But what divine timing teaches us is the art of surrender, learning to trust that God knows what He's doing, even when we don't. Waiting doesn't mean that God is silent or absent. In fact, it often means He's preparing something greater than we could imagine. During these times, it's important to understand that God's delays are not denials. When things don't happen on our schedule, it's not a sign that God is ignoring us, but rather that He's working behind the scenes to bring about something that's in perfect alignment with His will. There are times when divine timing may feel frustrating because we simply don't understand the purpose of the delay. We may have our own plans, our own ideas of how things should unfold, but God sees beyond our plans. He knows what we truly need, and when we need it, even when we can't see the bigger picture. This can be particularly difficult when we're waiting for reconciliation, healing, or for answers to deep questions in our lives. In these moments, it's easy to think that God has forgotten us or that He doesn't care. But divine timing is a reminder that everything happens at just the right time according to God's perfect plan. We may not understand why things are happening the way they are, but we can trust that God is working in ways that we cannot yet see. There's also something about divine timing that works to our benefit, even when we're not aware of it. Sometimes what we think is a delay is actually a protection. We might want something right now, but God knows that we're not ready for it, or that the timing isn't right for our own good. Perhaps there are lessons we need to learn, character we need to develop, or even people we need to meet before the next step can be taken. At other times, the situation we're facing might be an opportunity for God to refine us, to deepen our faith, and to draw us closer to Him. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means allowing God to work in us and through us while He orchestrates the perfect timing for our lives. Divine timing is also deeply connected to the idea of preparation. There are seasons in life when we may feel like nothing is happening. We may be praying, working, hoping, and yet things seem to be at a standstill. But in these moments, God is preparing us, teaching us patience, building our strength, and refining our hearts. Just like a seed must be planted in the soil and allowed to grow slowly before it can break through the surface, so too are we being nurtured in the hidden, quiet seasons of life. There is a process that's happening behind the scenes, a process that we may not see. But that is crucial for the fruition of what's to come. When we look back, we'll see that the waiting wasn't wasted. It was a period of preparation, of building a foundation for what God had in store for us. One of the most challenging aspects of divine timing is learning to trust in the unseen. It's easy to rely on what we can control, on what we can see. But divine timing requires faith, a deep, unwavering trust that God is at work, even when we don't have all the answers. It's trusting that He is making all things beautiful in His time, even when it doesn't make sense in the moment. Faith in divine timing means believing that God has our best interest at heart and that He will bring about His purposes at just the right moment. It means surrendering our desire for control and allowing Him to lead us on the path He has set before us. When we look back on the moments where we've waited, whether for healing, reconciliation, guidance, or provision, we often find that the delay was worth it. The timing was perfect. What we needed when we needed it came to us in a way that we couldn't have planned or orchestrated ourselves. The delays were not denials, they were divine opportunities for God to work in ways that we couldn't understand at the time, but can now see what is essential to our growth, understanding, and ultimate good. Divine timing is not just a passive waiting, but an active trust. It's learning to rest in the knowledge that God is sovereign over all the details of our lives. It's choosing to embrace each season, knowing that what might feel like a setback is often part of a larger, more beautiful story that we're only beginning to understand. In the waiting, God is at work, preparing us, aligning circumstances, and setting the stage for what's to come. Trusting in divine timing means trusting in His faithfulness, His love, and His perfect plan for our lives, even when it's unfolding in ways that we didn't expect. Healing is often a long, complex journey, one that doesn't always follow a clear or straightforward path. When we're hurt, whether by betrayal, loss, disappointment, or any number of emotional wounds, it can feel as if the pain will never end. It's easy to become consumed by the hurt, replaying the events over and over in our minds, focusing on the injustice or the weight of what has happened. But healing, more often than not, begins when we shift our perspective. It's not about denying the pain or pretending that everything is fine, but about reframing how we view our circumstances, and more importantly, how we view ourselves within them. One of the first steps in healing is recognizing that our pain doesn't define us. In the midst of hurt, it's easy to become absorbed by it, to allow the wound to become the story we tell about ourselves. We may feel broken, damaged, or like we'll never be the same again. But healing comes when we realize that pain, while part of our journey, does not have to be the end point. It's a chapter, not the entire book. When we begin to shift our focus away from the pain itself and instead look at what we can learn from it, we start to see the bigger picture. Perspective helps us realize that the hurt is not the final word, and that there is more to our story than just the suffering we've experienced. Part of healing through perspective is recognizing that pain is a universal experience. At the height of our suffering, it can feel as if we're alone, as if no one else has ever felt what we're feeling. But when we step back and shift our focus, we realize that pain is something everyone goes through. It's part of the human condition. We all experience moments of disappointment, rejection, grief, or fear. This realization doesn't diminish our own hurt, but it helps us understand that we are not isolated in our experience. There's something incredibly powerful in realizing that we share a common humanity with others. It allows us to stop seeing ourselves as victims and start seeing ourselves part of a larger story of resilience, healing, and growth. This shift in perspective helps us understand that we are not alone and that others have walked through similar struggles and emerged stronger for it. Healing also comes when we recognize that our pain has purpose. This is one of the most difficult concepts to accept, especially when we're in the midst of deep hurt. It's hard to see how anything good could come from something that feels so wrong or unjust. But as time passes and we gain a broader perspective, we often find that our pain was not without reason. Sometimes the things that hurt us most are the very things that propel us toward growth, transformation, and deeper understanding. When we go through hard times, we are often forced to confront parts of ourselves that we may have avoided, insecurities, fears, or unhealthy patterns of thinking. Pain can be a mirror that reflects back to us what needs to be healed. It can also be a catalyst that pushes us to reevaluate our lives, our values, and our relationships. Though we may not understand the reasons for our suffering in the moment, looking back, we often see how the experience shaped us in ways we never could have anticipated. Another critical shift in perspective is moving from a mindset of blame and resentment to one of forgiveness and release. When someone hurts us, it's easy to hold on to anger, to fixate on the wrong done to us, and to believe that we cannot heal until the person who hurt us acknowledges their actions or offers an apology. But healing comes when we realize that forgiveness is not about excusing the other person's behavior, it's about freeing ourselves from the grip of bitterness and resentment. Holding on to anger keeps us tethered to the past, to the person who hurt us, and to the pain itself. But when we choose to forgive not for their sake, but for our own, we release the power the hurt has over us. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean that the wrong was justified. It simply means that we choose to no longer let the offense control our future. When we can shift our perspective from holding on to pain to letting go through forgiveness, we allow healing to begin. Healing also involves the ability to see our situation through the lens of hope. It's easy to fall into despair when we're in the midst of suffering, believing that things will never get better. But shifting our perspective means seeing beyond the present moment, to trust that change is possible. Healing doesn't always happen quickly, and it doesn't always look the way we expect it to. Sometimes it's a slow, incremental process with setbacks along the way. But when we view our healing through the lens of hope, we understand that each day is a step toward restoration, even if we don't see immediate results. Hope reminds us that no season of life lasts forever, that even the darkest night will eventually give way to dawn. Holding on to hope allows us to look beyond our present circumstances and trust that healing is happening, even if it's not visible to us yet.